The American Tinnitus Association, the new mission on tinnitus and hyperacusis. We're looking forward to hearing about the progress from the American Tinnitus Association. Melanie.
Well, good morning. How many of you were at the square dance last night? Okay, all right. Well, I had a lot of fun, and I want to tell you what. You helped me to relive a childhood memory. I actually used to square dance. And that really is something that I did. But there was an audience of about 2,000 at this particular square dance, so I used to do exhibition square dance and travel to different states, and we used to get badges. But you know, I never got to square dance in a barn. And so you've helped me accomplish something that I never thought I would, and that was an awful lot of fun, but thank you for inviting us and having fun. I appreciate my partner last night and the tolerance of going the wrong way and the rest of the square. And so anyway, lots of fun. Well, I want to acknowledge a few people, and one, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I work for the ATA and volunteer. So all of my hours are given with love and care, and because I am concerned about those who have tinnitus, and now hyperacusis as well. So Dr. Michael Robb, in 2008, I've had tinnitus my entire life. And so I've not ever known a day in my life without this silly noise in my head. And I kind of learned to deal with that noise on my own because there was not even a diagnostic code. So when I went to doctors, instead of them telling me to go home and learn to live with it, they told me, "You don't have it." And I actually had one doctor say, "Young lady, I think you just ought to grow up. You're costing your parents an awful lot of money to go to all these doctors." And so fortunately, I had one psychologist, actually, is where I ended up to, that helped me find something good in it. And as you saw, I like to sing. And so when I was calling with the square dancing, I also was singing in other groups. And so he helped me to find the pure tone. We didn't know that it was called a pure tone, but he helped me to find a pure tone that I could have relative pitch. And so when we sang a cappella, everyone, instead of it being a negative that I've got this horrible thing, my friends would turn around to me and say, "Give us a G, Melanie." And because I had that pure tone, had found where it was, I was the hero. So that's something to remember with your patients. Have them find something good in it. And so I'd like to say, though, that in 2008, I was rear-ended in a car accident, and that really woke me up, and I went straight back to zero of like an initial onset. And my quality of life went down dramatically. My family was a little concerned because I couldn't sleep. So I sought out a support group, which was the American Tinnitus Association. And in seeking them out, they recommended that I see Dr. Michael Robb in Phoenix, which is where I'm from. Like I said, you know, with doing the square dancing, actually I was from the Wild Wild West, and that's why we square danced, back when it was the Wild Wild West. And so in 2008, when this happened, I went to Dr. Robb, and he helped me in such an extensive way initially, and I would say I received some help. I was so impressed with the assistance and the help he was giving other patients. I actually called him up. I told my husband, I said, you know, I've got to do something. And I said, I think I need to go and volunteer for this doctor. So I did. And 7 years ago, he hired me. And I ended up working for him. So I actually work with patients who have tinnitus, hyperacusis, misophonia, as well as vestibular issues. We work with vertigo, dizziness, imbalances of any sort, Meniere's disease, and migraine headaches and headaches. And as you know, many of those are combined symptoms that patients experience. And so he helped me, and finally, after a full year of working with him, he kept saying, "Melanie, you have a little bit of high-frequency hearing loss, so you need to consider having a hearing aid." Well, I said, no, there's no way. You know, I just felt like, number one, I'm too young, don't want to do that, not going to happen. Had my hair real short at the time, don't want it to show. And so I kept putting it off. Well, after about a year, I love reading abstracts, and he finally, he's a brilliant man, and he finally turned around and he said, Melanie, why don't you read this abstract? And it presented to me that 68% of those with high-frequency hearing loss have the potential of receiving a percentage of relief for tinnitus. So in reading that abstract, for some reason, that's when it clicked. And I decided that I really need to try this out, and did. And immediately, that day, I could tell a tremendous amount of relief. The next morning, I woke up, and of course, I did not have the hearing aids in, and involuntarily, tears were running down my face. And it was such a dramatic difference of not having the hearing aids on and the ones I had on the next day. Well, I've worn them ever since. It's the first thing I do early in the morning is put them on. It's the last thing I do at night is take them off. And I've got to tell you, you're doing an incredible service when you help those people that have hearing loss and fit them with hearing aids, and or those that do not have hearing loss and you fit them with sound generators and have solutions with the sound therapy, because it really gives a person the quality of life back. So I want to credit you for that and appreciate what you're doing. And then Dr. Rob turned around and said, well, I'm on the board of the American Tinnitus Association, and would you help me out with, they have a national walk. Jack Vernon founded the ATA, and they have a national walk. They want us to do something in Arizona to kind of support them. So would you help me out and do that? So I called up the ATA office and said, what do I need to do? He said, well, why don't you hold a walk there in Phoenix? And I said, okay, I'll be happy to do that. When are you going to have it? He said, June 23rd. Now, I don't know if you've heard the news lately. We're supposed to hit over 120 when I go back tomorrow. But that particular year, it was well over 115. And so just involuntarily, I said to the poor fellow, I said, Wes, are you crazy? And he said, well, Melanie, we can have it any time you want. We'll just have an Arizona walk. And so we did. We had one in March of 2010 and 2011. And I'm pleased to say that we raised an awful lot of money for ATA. But that got me going with figuring out and working with not only the patients I already was working with, but working with board members and other people that are advocating for the patients, and a lot of audiologists. So then I want to thank Jennifer Bourne, because she helped to nominate me to the directors. And so I started serving as a board of director, and then on up to where I was am currently chair, and serving in an interim basis as executive director. So if you've added those 3 jobs up and figured out I'm working too hard, you're absolutely right. So hopefully that's going to change, and we're going to have new employees set to help with the leadership. But you know, it's been an exciting time, and also it's really been rewarding because we have a very active board. So what I'd like to do is to thank Rich Tyler for, you didn't know that you kind of started me out. When I worked for Dr. Rob, he handed me the Consumer Handbook on Tinnitus and said, read this. And I not only read it, but highlighted in yellow most of the pages, and so they're all marked up. But that was my actual handbook, not only to help Dr. Rob with the patients and to work with the patients, have a greater understanding for the patients, but also for it was therapeutic for me, which I believe is what the intention of that was for. And so definitely, you know, utilizing the tools that the researchers and the clinicians have provided for us is really important. And not only for an understanding for your patients, but providing it to them so that they have sources as well. So again, thank you for inviting us here. We really appreciate that. Let's talk about you now. We've talked about me. Let's talk about you. How many of you in the room are an audiologist? Okay, great, majority. How many are medical doctors? How many are psychologists? How many are other than that healthcare? Okay, okay. All right, good. How many are a patient? And I say patient, forgive me. Okay, all right, or a person. How many of you have tinnitus? How many of you have hyperacusis? All right, see, our percentages are going just about right. All right, so what we have done is I really feel like it's necessary to learn to serve the patients better. So I'm assuming that if you're here and you've taken the time out of your career to be here, you have that desire. And then, how many of you kind of wanted to understand the devices and what else is available on the market? Great. Well, I'm really glad to see that because the devices have changed dramatically. I think you mentioned that, Rich, that there's so many more manufacturers that are now marketing for tinnitus and hyperacusis, and I think this is going to be coming in the future. So one of the things that we're hoping that you will consider is to specialize in tinnitus and hyperacusis. These individuals really need the care that they can have from professionals who are credentialed or have information that they have learned from conferences such as this. So definitely keep pursuing the knowledge in this area. We want to encourage you to do that and find solutions for tinnitus and hyperacusis. Now, why would you do that monetarily? In a practice, and my background is business prior to the medical, and so I find that when you are helping a person with tinnitus and hyperacusis because their life had a quality of life problem in it, that when you help them get over that hump, they are your best advocates, and they will recommend you openly to all their friends. And they talk about their condition quite often, and so they have the opportunity to share, where oftentimes if someone has just hearing loss, they may or may not tell other people, and they may not have the opportunity to share who their audiologist is. So actually it might be, in a marketing manner, good for your practice. So let's talk about tinnitus. According to the data analyzed from the 2011-2012 National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey conducted by the U.S. Centers of Disease Control, nearly 15% of the general public, you know this, over 50 million people experience tinnitus, some form. And of those, 20 million struggle with the burdensome chronic tinnitus, while 2 million have extreme tinnitus and debilitating cases. And that would include hyperacusis too. So many of those, and we'll look at why. Tinnitus is most often reported as the result of noise exposure, either from a single impulse noise or cumulative exposure to noise. So head and neck injury are the second most reported causes of tinnitus, and as I mentioned with the car accident, we are seeing more motor vehicle accidents and traumatic brain injury leading to the symptoms of both tinnitus and hyperacusis. 30 million workers in the U.S. are at risk. The Centers for Disease Control report that nearly 13% of children ages 6 to 19, 5 million in the U.S., already have some form of sensorineural hearing loss. So this means that you will have tinnitus and are at greater risk of developing tinnitus. So we do want to reach the kids as we can to give them prevention ideas, and ATA certainly does that as an organization. And then the service-related tinnitus in military, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs, tinnitus remains the #1 service-connected disability for veterans from all periods of service for 1,276,456 service personnel. So if you're looking at the cost that is associated with that number, we're talking $2.4 billion annually. And so there is just a fraction that goes towards research. So these servicemen and women really need to be supported when they come back from their service or in their service. So how many people we looked at the numbers here, but I'm going to kind of give you an idea of how many people have hyperacusis compared to tinnitus and why ATA considered looking at both hyperacusis with the tinnitus, since it's the American Tinnitus Association. Anderson et al. Asked 1,147 individuals, by internet and postal mail, this question: do you consider yourself to be sensitive to everyday sounds? And 8.6% answered yes. Exclusion of patients who reported hearing impairment resulted in a prevalence rate of 6.8% to ensure exclusion of recruitment. And then 31% of hyperacusis patients used earplugs compared to 10.6% in the main population. So there is a correlation or a correlating factor for hyperacusis included in tinnitus. The difference oftentimes, some do, some don't, they experience pain and sensitivity to light and colors. So dizziness was significant for the hearing impaired participants as well. So one of the things that we started looking at is how that ATA should look at that, because we have such a high population. If you look at the statistics, just out of the members we have nationally and internationally in ATA, we already have 40% or so, 30 to 40% that have hyperacusis. So we have on our board of directors members who have hyperacusis. And also, I'd like to acknowledge and credit Brian Pollard of the Hyperacusis Research. That's a nonprofit dedicated to stopping noise-induced pain. And so we voted to change the mission statement itself and then include them with the tinnitus to address the issues our members already have. And in the 2014 U.S. CDC National Health Interview Survey, it showed the following, that 6% of the population have a sensitivity to everyday sounds. Based on the question, do everyday sounds such as a hairdryer, vacuum cleaner, lawnmower, or siren seem too loud or annoying to you? And I know, I've never considered, and I've not been tested to say that I have hyperacusis, but, there's many things that a patient knows on their own that they just figure out. Well, I have a great husband, and he's really good at letting me know before he leaves, and he is, I call him Saint Jerry, because he just is there and has supported not only me, but ATA along the way incredibly. But one of the things that we came up with is he would come around the corner, and it would just startle me. And because of the tinnitus, I'm not sure whether it's just part of that, it would just have that startle effect. So we had to come up with a little code, so he actually goes beep, 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 beep before he comes around the corner. So many of the tinnitus patients found that they were having the same kind of reactions to many of their everyday noises. And what some of them did not know is that, it was greater than and could be measured and possibly are diagnosed with hyperacusis. So 11% have ringing in the ears and 21% have difficulty following a conversation amid background noise. So over 40% of adults 70 years and older. And so that is a big problem, seeing them in a social environment of, let's say, an open house or a restaurant makes it very, very difficult. Again, let's see. All right, so what's the history of ATA? And I think Rich mentioned a little bit further earlier in our conversations and conference today, or yesterday. In 1971, ATA was founded by Jack Vernon, a PhD, and Charles Eunice, an MD. Now, Charles was in California, and he had tinnitus himself. So one of the things that we found is he was a very persistent man, and he wanted to figure out a way not only to help himself, but to help others who had this condition. So Charles Eunice was in California, and he called Jack, and Jack was doing some research, which we'll show you. And during that time when he was doing the research, he got a call from Jack, and Jack said, well, I want to come up and I want you to help me with this because I want to figure out what I can do about this noise in my head, and I think we need to help some other people. Well, he definitely went up to, Charles went up to no, I'm sorry, Jack said, well, no, I'm in the middle of research, but these are animal models, so there's really nothing I can do for you. And Charles, being the persistent type of person he was, he flew up to Portland, Oregon, and showed up on Jack's doorstep. Well, Jack didn't know what to say to him other than have a discussion, so he pulled some associates together and said, okay, let's take him to lunch. You know, we can at least talk about it. So they went. As they were going to lunch, everyone walked into the restaurant, and outside was the Lovejoy fountain of this particular restaurant in Portland, Oregon. If you've been there, there's many fountains, and this is just one. And Jack turned around, and Charles was nowhere to be found. And he looked up, and there he was in front of this fountain, kind of in a stupor. And Jack went up and said, what is going on? Are you okay? And Jack said, well, I'm sorry, Charles said, I don't hear my tinnitus for the first time. And that is where Jack had an aha moment and realized that by masking the tinnitus, there was relief. So Jack went back and changed his research and started working in a different area, and that he is one of the first that started working with sound therapy and masking, particularly in masking. So as you can see, why would ATA be important to you? Well, they were some of the first founding researchers that were involved with providing the pathway that has led you to being able to offer the hearing aids and hearing devices of any sort or sound generators to patients. And the history with Jack, in 1980, they started funding first seed grants. And when I say a seed grant, it's a small grant that helps a researcher to go, and or a student, to go ahead and prove their trials so that they can obtain greater amount of money. So also in 1986, Dear Abby, a person with tinnitus actually wrote to Dear Abby, and that was printed nationally. We received 120,000 letters to ATA in 1986, and that's kind of what got us going to the greatest extent. In 1988, the Tinnitus Today was launched. That is the magazine that we have, and hopefully you've picked up out front. And Jack's contributions, by being so selfless, he would on Fridays in his office take calls from anyone that wanted to call in and answer their questions on tinnitus. So we're looking at, ATA is looking at actually continuing that by using webinars to present the researchers to people that have questions. And that way they can do a Q&A and ask their question and have it answered. But we're just going to use new technology to go back and utilize what Jack proved the patients and individuals with tinnitus and hyperacusis really like. So ATA's mission then, back then, was ears, education, advocacy, research, and support. In 2005, the ATA's Scientific Advisory Committee developed its roadmap to a cure, which shifted the mission to focus more on research. And Dr. Tyler was one of the first chairs, or was one of our chairs for the Scientific Advisory Committee. So these are really bright men and women who serve and volunteer to assist ATA in determining which grants should be funded. So the mission now, as we have changed it, it's improving the lives of people with tinnitus and hyperacusis by providing hope of a quieter future through education, advocacy, and research toward a cure. And as I think you've heard in the last day and today, is there may be more than one cure. There may be different pathways that are found for different populations of both tinnitus, individuals with tinnitus and those with hyperacusis. And I'm hoping so, because that may bring more products to market and more solutions right away. The ATA is the nation's foremost and trusted organization committed to finding cures for tinnitus and hyperacusis. Our commitment demands focus, determination, strategy, and resources. ATA promotes synergy between dedicated medical professionals and researchers who work with and within the tinnitus community. The battle for a cure is real and will be won through advances in technology and medicine, areas where we have often been a conduit to new discoveries. We fulfill our mission by funding targeted research projects, providing education, hope, and support for the tinnitus community, advocating for effective public policies focused on advancing science towards cures for tinnitus and hyperacusis, and collaborating with others to promote awareness, encourage prevention, and to ultimately silence tinnitus. So why did we change the mission statement? Well, a coincidence of tinnitus complaint and of experiences of hyperacusis has been widely noted. Among patients attending tinnitus clinics with a primary complaint of tinnitus, the prevalence of hyperacusis is about 40%. And in patients with a primary complaint of hyperacusis, the prevalence of tinnitus has been reported as much as 86%. So the apparent link has led to speculation about common mechanisms, and this was provided by Dr. David Bagley. And so in the majority of patients with hyperacusis, the cause is unknown. However, it has been linked to sound exposure, particularly impulse noise, head injury, stress, and then medications. These are similarly reported in tinnitus onset, and Dr. Jastreboff provided that research and information. So I would like to also thank Dr. Fangang Zhang for providing a few slides for the ATA. He serves on the Scientific Advisory Committee, and there are many others that serve on the advisory committee and or we reach out to speak for us on our webinars. So he is just one, and he provided these particular slides, so I want to thank him for that. Tinnitus may reflect increased noise, whereas hyperacusis increased gain in the brain. While these two mechanisms are theoretically independent, they do reinforce each other and introduce comorbidity of tinnitus and hyperacusis in the clinical population. And then the Rivas et al. Study found that modulated sounds produced excellent suppression of tinnitus in a third of the patients. There were good responders, but little or no suppression in 30% in another third. So they were considered then the poor responders, which you can see by the graph. And then the good responders showed no sign of hyperacusis, while the poor responders did, suggesting that hyperacusis and tinnitus are comorbid. And additionally, that hyperacusis needs to be treated before tinnitus, consistent with Jastreboff and Vernon's recommendation. So again, if you notice the graph, you can see the differences there with the tinnitus, the poor responders, and the good responders. So the researchers are starting to really validate that hyperacusis and tinnitus has a comorbidity. How does this relate to you? Well, first of all, the American Tinnitus Association funds grants, $10,000 grants for students and $50,000 seed grants for researchers. We welcome you to submit your research to ATA. We have the Scientific Advisory Committee review those, so it's very well watched and we have a good oversight on those grants. And then there's over $6 million in research has been supported since 1980. So we are the organization that is out there in front trying to help the tinnitus and hyperacusis patient. This gives you the roadmap that we have that the researchers go through. I'm not going to go through each slide, but you will have the slides available to you. So feel free to go back and read those individually. So again, how does this relate to you as an audiologist or a medical professional or as a person who has tinnitus or hyperacusis? ATA-funded researchers can then go to apply and receive grants from a larger funding entity like the National Institutes of Health, Department of Defense, and Department of Veteran Affairs. And they have done exactly that. Some of the grants that we have funded, informational masking and tinnitus adaptation with Grant Searchfield in the University of Auckland, New Zealand. I just came back from meeting with him in February of this year and had the opportunity to go to his university and meet with his students. And so that is some of the funding that we're doing, validating the GAP-STARTLE model of tinnitus detection using behavioral and electrophysiological tests in humans. That's Sylvie Herbert in the University of Montreal, Canada. And so Dr. Fangang Zhang had our research funded for him, so he had the seed grant. And once that seed grant was funded, he took that grant and was given another grant that developed. He's from the University of Irvine. And it allows all hearing tinnitus patients access to technology through web-based diagnoses and treatment. So the sound masking is only one. There are many other products out there as well. So I want to tell you that ATA is independent and stays impartial to any particular product, but it's just an example of how that particular product went to market for you. So ATA also advocates in Washington, D.C. This gives you an idea of how we work with the senators and our representatives in Washington, D.C. In that particular one, I met with Representative Mashad, and we award them for presenting bills to the Senate and to Congress for approval. So ATA can provide education, brochures, support, keep you up to date with tinnitus and hyperacusis, advocate on a government level, and again, provide those seed grants. So if you are a professional, we hope that you'll consider joining us. If our bags are out in front, as you well know, please feel free. There is an application inside to sign up. If you have tinnitus or hyperacusis, there's also a means of joining the association. So we want to thank you again today for inviting us to the conference. It's been a very informative conference for me. And final acknowledgments, I want to thank Dr. Tyler, Jody Asmus, who has been here at the conference the whole time assisting, Scott Mitchell for considering videotaping all of the presentations so that you can view them online, and ATA for sponsoring and videotaping and paying for all of these sessions, and Andy Small for doing the video taping. So again, we thank you very much for your support to the American Tinnitus Association. We encourage you, if you're not a member, to join.